Thank you for joining me on this podcast of The Real Story with Jeannie Ives, where we bring you experts and from politicians to policy people to discuss federal, state, and local policy because it matters how you vote, and we want you to be an informed voter. So you're in for a treat today. With me on this podcast right now is Alan Skillicorn. He is a former state representative, and I served with him while we were in Springfield together. And Alan has left the state. Like so many other great people, he has left the state for Arizona, where he has decided that his opportunities lie in a freer state like Arizona than it does in the state of Illinois. Now, I have him on for a couple reasons. One, I want to hear about how Arizona is going for him, and maybe he can give us some comparative information about what he faced here running a small business in Illinois compared to what he faced in Arizona. But we also want to talk about Mike Madigan, because we're not finished discussing his indictment and then his recent arraignment just last week, just ahead of the Irish parade. So that was a nice little thing. I like the fact that, Alan, I just got to tell you, there was a pub down on the south side of Chicago that had this saying. It said, "We have had enough of the Democrats and their criminal enterprise." Now, this was in the south side of Chicago, where you've got a lot of union members, right? And a lot of these blue-collar union members, they're reasonable people that want reasonable policy. But for many years, their unions supported Mike Madigan and made him who he is and was, and gave him the ability to run his quote-unquote criminal enterprise, or at least that's what's alleged in this indictment. And so now you see this, we've had enough of the Democrats. I'm not sure I believe it. I want to believe it. What do you think?
Well, I have a feeling that this rays of hope, and if there's any year that the Republicans, or specifically conservatives, will do well, as this year. I mean, people are mad about $5 a gallon gas. People are mad about World War III starting. People are mad about inflation. But I hate to say it, it seems like some of these people in the suburbs, they don't get it. They vote against their self-interest year after year. And I think that Republicans and just conservatives would do better in the 2020 election, or the 2022 election, but I have a feeling they're not going to do well enough.
Well, I have that same sort of feeling myself about Illinois. Now, I think the rest of the country is going to have, a big revelation, and I think that a lot of those folks have woken up, but I'm not sure about Illinois, and I don't know why I'm so cynical about it. You and I sat through some pretty difficult conversations on the House floor when it came to fiscal policy. We saw the heavy hand of Mike Madigan literally every single day. And it just doesn't seem like we can get the media on our side to tell the truth about what's going on. And I blame the media largely for the creation of Mike Madigan's legacy, which is a fiscal basket case in the state of Illinois. I mean, he left the state in ruins. He just did.
Yeah, absolutely. But you saw this in the national media, where they basically did talk about the fact that Biden was running his campaign from his basement, that he has been a serial liar and plagiarizer for 45 years. They did the same thing with Michael Madigan. Look at some of those details there. They wanted to have a good relationship with Democrats and do those interviews, and to do that, they could not expose the truth. The truth was that the state was banana republic. They spent money they didn't have. They overpromised all this money on pensions, and then never collected the money to pay the pensions out. So when I left, I just saw the situation where I saw property taxes that they're not just high. They're going to continue getting higher and higher because all those local pensions had to be paid for. The state wasn't paying for them, so it was going to come down on our properties, and effectively the government was going to take a sliver of my house away every single year. And just destroy any equity I have there because they would take so much money in property taxes. Very different here. I went from paying 3% a year in property taxes to 0.5%. You know what that means? I was able to buy a house twice as expensive as I had, and effectively have about the same mortgage payment. And I mean, obviously things worked out really well. I mean, there's houses have gone up in value quite a bit, especially here in the Phoenix area. We saw over 30% of housing inflation here last year, but you still can buy an overpriced house and save money because the property taxes are so low. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, we have a house that its valuation is a lot more than my old house, and the valuation has actually gone up like $200,000 in the last year also. But here's the key: my property taxes are about $1,300 a year, not a month. What a big difference that makes.
That's unbelievable. Because you're right. I mean, where I live, you can have a $400,000, $500,000 house, and you're paying $12,000 for that on like a quarter of an acre. It's a joke.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean,
yes.
One of my favorite.
Yes,
it
is tough to find a good $400,000 house here in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
I give you that. But all of a sudden, we enter the mortgage calculator. You're like, wait a second. That's what I noticed right away. So after they did that crazy gas tax, that's when I was like, I'm done with it. Okay. I mean, the Republicans stabbed us in the back, and the Democrats stabbed us in the face when they did that gas tax increase. So I started shopping.
Great way to put it. That is a great way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we did. We had 20 Republican colleagues stab us in the back and vote for a doubling of our gas tax. And now they're all grandstanding about, we need to repeal that gas tax increase. Well, where were you before, Avery Bourne? Where were you? You voted for it, and now you're running for lieutenant governor.
Taxes
Good grief!
That now want to have it paused for a year, and even if they pause it for a year, they're still going to increase it next year. And the damage is done. They doubled it back in what was that, 2018?
Yeah.
And now all they want to do is they're going to pause. What was it, like a 1 cent increase in July?
Yes,
1
exactly.
cent versus doubling it.
Yes.
It's a phony thing, and they're just trying to get newspaper headlines to defend their bad votes and their bad. Basically, they're colluding with the Democrats.
Right, and by the way, that's unfortunately in this environment, it just seems like everybody only looks at a meme or a headline. So if the media doesn't write the headline correctly, then the truth never comes out because they bury the fact that they doubled the gas tax in 2019. They bury that on the bottom of the article. It's just I do blame the media. Hey, but back to the property taxes. I mean some of the shenanigans that Madigan played. I don't know if you remember. Were you there that year where I think you were? We took, I think it was 30 votes on property tax reform, and all of it was fake reform. All of it was to get Republicans to vote for fake reforms and then say that they voted against teachers, they voted against local control, or they voted this way, or they voted that way. And we knew that none of it was going to go through. We knew it. Now, my position was call his bluff. Call his bluff. We should have all voted as a caucus to vote with the Democrats for the fake property tax reform, just to call his bluff. But I mean, we sat there for I think 2 weeks. I mean, on the House floor. Actually, no, it probably happened for over a few different months, where every week it would be property tax bill time, and they'd roll out a property tax bill, total fake. All the Democrats would vote for it so that they could say that they voted for property tax reform. And the Republicans are like, you guys are just faking it. We're not going to vote for this. Do you remember that?
Yeah, so that was actually the year before I got down there.
Oh, that was the year
before
you got there.
I definitely remember that.
Oh.
And as I kind of got involved in it, now a lot of Republicans don't tell you this because some of them, they don't even know the truth. I mean, they're just told by leadership and they do what they're told. But I know you looked into this. I looked into this. I had a group of 7 people that were like our conservative caucus after you had left, and we would look into the details. So what we discovered was that Mike Madigan would take all of his either freshman legislators or legislators that were in purple areas, and he would give them this bill. And the bill would either lower property taxes or cap property taxes, something like that. And then it would pass the House, and then it wouldn't go anywhere. And then he'd have the same thing in the Senate. They'd pass something in the Senate, so the cap property taxes or lower property taxes, and then it wouldn't go anywhere. And he'd give all these targeted Democrats these headline bills. They give a great reform, right? But they were never intended to pass, and they're fake and phony. And it gave Democrats and Mike Madigan fodder to attack Republicans because under the weak leadership of Bruce Slaughter, he wouldn't go along with it. He thought he was going to outsmart them, but he fell into Madigan's trap every single time. And then all these targeted suburban area Democrats got to go, hey, I passed the bill, but other Republicans voted against it. Yeah. And it really allowed them to stay in power and grow their power. And now the whole state's blue. And what are you going to do? All these Democrats will say, hey, I voted to cut your property taxes.
Yes.
And then the Republicans have nothing to run against.
It's total bullshit. Okay, so in one particular case, because I think it's important to also point out exactly Madigan's methods. So we took one of these fake property tax reform votes that basically by this time Republicans were like, we're not voting for any of it. We're just going not voting. We're just going to sit in our seats and watch you guys basically pretend to be legislating when you're not. And so one of those was on a Friday. We took the vote probably at like about 10 or 11 in the morning because, you know, we always left early on Fridays since the Democrats never wanted to work. They were always late, by the way, but that's a whole nother thing to talk about. But so we take this fake vote on property taxes and Republicans don't vote for it. Then by the following Monday, in State Representative Mark Batnick's district, Mike Madigan had a mailer in people's mailboxes saying that he didn't vote for property tax reform. So he knew exactly what was going to happen. He had that mailer ready to go. It was already printed. There's no doubt in my mind. And by Monday, he had it drop into people's mailboxes. So they would just, you know, also lie about Republicans. So they would tout themselves out as being big reformers, and then they would lie about Republicans when they didn't vote for fake reform. I mean, the games that this guy played and got away with is just remarkable.
So some of the stories I remember.
Yes.
If you're sitting on the House floor, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff, but they move bills really fast. And I remember our floor leader, telling him to always slow down the bills. One, so that we get the opportunity to read more of them, because if you're running a bill every 60 seconds, it's very tough to know what's going on and read them all and have that going for you. So I always like, let's slow this. We always got to ask questions. We always got to slow it down, have a debate instead of just going this short debate and such. But I still remember there were times when you'd watch the other side. You watch how they vote. And, of course, most of Democrats would vote yes for something, and then you see a few Democrats vote no. And those are always suburban Democrats that live in purple areas. And the insider jargon for that is called targets. These are all people that were in targeted races, so their voting record matters. And as soon as you see those particular, like 6, 7, maybe up to 12 Democrats vote no for something and all the other Democrats vote for it, and then, of course, the Republicans are all voting yes because it looks like it's an okay bill, you know there's something hidden in the bill that's bad. So effectively, Mike Madigan will take all these bills, and it might be an okay bill. It might be something that's fine. It might be a technical correction or something, but he would hide something in there saying, like, you wanted to kick puppies or you didn't want to fund rape kits or something, so he could use it for negative mailers. And he'd always would do that. And then, of course, the people that were on his targeted list would be instructed not to vote for it or vote for certain things like that, and they would know ahead of time, and they actually had a list. And there was one member that had a list of who was allowed to vote for what. So effectively, these people were not representing their districts. They were working for Mike Madigan and for his campaign tricks. And they were instructed how to vote. People don't know that, but that is definitely inside baseball. So if you have listeners that are in DuPage County and you've got like Deb Conroy and those people that you're still your state representative.
Oh, Deb Conroy thinks she wants to run to be a DuPage County chairperson. She would be a disaster.
Wow.
That she would be an absolute. Do not put a $400 million budget.
All these years.
Yeah. What? I'm sorry.
Yeah, they've never had any autonomy. They never actually fought for themselves. Madigan always told them how they could vote on all these bills.
She could never manage this. She couldn't manage the votes. She couldn't manage a $400 million budget. You cannot put her in charge. I mean, just recently, too, she wanted to make sure that everybody had to reveal their personal health records to the government if they asked for it. So, I mean, she's just she is a problem. But, I mean, these people are seeking more power when they've destroyed the state, which is really, I mean, I don't know. I agree with you. In 2022, will voters in the state of Illinois wake up to the malfeasance of the Democrats and the games that they played? I mean,
so one thing that we see that's going on is that blue states are getting bluer and red states are getting redder right now because people are moving. So, and a lot of people in Illinois are saying, forget this. The idea of paying $10,000 a year in property taxes, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. So they moved to Florida, they moved to Tennessee, they moved to Texas, they moved to Arizona, and they're moving to the free states. Well, the free states are getting redder, and the blue states like Illinois and New York and Minnesota are getting bluer. And even though we're going to have a red wave, every single race is going to see like a 4 to 6 point advantage for Republicans right now. But think about it, if 10% of the Republicans have left Illinois, what are you left with? You're left with the people that are benefiting from the system, not the people that represent, previously me and represent you.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, so I mean, this is to me like a huge year in the state of Illinois. Do we win back anything? And if we do, how significant is it? Because it will tell you a lot more about what the independents think, what the soft Democrats think. Are they going to come along for common sense reform? I don't know, but I live in DuPage County, which when I moved in 30 years ago was one of the reddest counties, not just in the state of Illinois, but in the entire nation, and has completely been taken over by Democrats who have moved out of the disaster of Chicago public schools and even Cook County and have moved into nice Wheaton and are starting to just basically buy into a bunch of woke indoctrination in the schools, a bunch of property taxes increases through referendum that is unnecessary, and so I mean this is what we're faced with. I don't know. I just hope people wake up.
So the same thing happened in Orange County, California. So back in the early 1970s, Orange County, California was known as the most Republican county in the United States. It was the home of the Reagan Revolution, both when he was governor and when he became president. And that was a big, big deal. In 2018, Orange County, California lost every single Republican congressman. Every single one was now a Democrat, that giant county in Southern California. And I think in 2020, like one or two won their seats back. But that just goes a little bit what's going on with the dynamics. Now, obviously, conservatives are leaving California. Actually, a lot of people are leaving California. Unfortunately, a lot of them are taking their same dumb voting principles with them, unfortunately. And we see that problem here. But we're planning on putting a stop to it here in Arizona.
Oh, that's great. That I want to get to that in a minute. But back to Madigan, I mean, just some of the maneuverings that people don't understand. They had the ability to literally block any single piece of legislation that they wanted to at all. I mean, they could just say, I mean, honestly, I remember my first piece of legislation, maybe you remember yours. I went up to Jack Franks and it was a transparency, it was transparency. It dealt with transparency. And I went up to Jack and said, hey, look, I'd like to have my bill heard in your committee. And he literally said, well, I was told to kill it, but because I like you, I'll at least give you a hearing. I mean, that's how we were treated, second-class citizens. It's just amazing. I mean, it was a fact-free environment down there too. You remember the debates, all emotion, no facts. It's remarkable.
Yeah. I mean, I still remember I always would introduce a lot of bills, and a lot of them were substantial. I hate the idea of doing nothing bills just to get your name on something that passes, right?
Yes.
And you had opportunity to do that, but you know, I pushed pension reform. I went for a constitutional amendment capping property taxes. I tried to get rid of the FOID card. I tried to lower fees for concealed carry. All these really good things that we needed. I would push those, and you talk to the person that was a committee chair, like, well, I'm told I couldn't do that. So finally, I started going to the Democrat staff members who actually controlled things, and I'd make my case to them. And occasionally, you get a hearing out of them, occasionally you wouldn't. But one thing that was noteworthy, I remember when I was first elected, and we kind of had these orientation classes.
Yes.
And I remember some of the Democrats said that the staff does not work for the Democrats. The staff works for the speaker. And if you do something the speaker doesn't like, well, staff isn't going to support you. So they're not going to help you write the bill. They're not going to research it for you. They're not going to gather data for you. They're not going to let the committee chairs hear your bill. So effectively, even then, this was, let's see here, that was December of 2016, that was the Democrats saying that they could not work with the speaker, that he basically pushed down his will on them, and no matter what. So just think about what it was for us. They would tell us, no, we're not going to hear your bill, or, this is dead on arrival. I get that all the time on substantive bills that the people wanted and needed, but that's not how, it did not suit Mike Madigan to lower taxes. It did not suit Mike Madigan to pass a budget.
Right.
It did not suit Mike Madigan to have freedom in the state of Illinois.
Well, and then in many cases, too, if a Republican did have a decent bill that they liked, they just flat out steal it. They would actually, they stole one of my bills word by word, word for word, and filed it as their own piece of legislation, and then had the audacity to ask me to be a co-sponsor.
Yeah, there's a bill I did about banning selling the DNA information, let's say that the private companies,
right,
and some other private information, and that bill, not word for word, but all of a sudden, I had a committee hearing for it. The Democrats liked it. The staff said, hey, it's a good idea. We'll hear the bill, and it'll probably pass. And the day I got through the hearing, I found out that they had handed very similar legislation to a Democrat. Obviously, Democrats wrote it, put her name on the bill, and I actually had a hearing the first day, or that same day, but my hearing was like last on the schedule, where hers was near the front of the schedule. So everyone had basically left, and my bill, I think, passed committee, but it just languished. It didn't go anywhere. Where her bill, which is the same concept, went to the floor, and we all voted on it. And it's law today. That's a very common thing for them to do.
Oh, yeah. Same thing happened with me with a bill that Kifowit designed for really a constituent in my area as a response. It was the killing of the lady at a stop in Texas, and I basically filed legislation saying that part of driver education is to also learn how to properly respond to a police stop, making it more robust. And, of course, that got stolen, too, because it was great legislation. I don't know. Hey, so let's just close this out here. But I just want to, so you've moved from Illinois to Arizona. Do you any regrets at all?
Yeah, I have one regret.
Okay.
That I didn't leave a decade earlier. I should have left a decade earlier. I'm sitting here. I'm watching palm trees. It's 75 degrees. It's amazing. I live in the foothills of the McDowell Mountains. The scenery is beautiful. I can go hiking any day of the week I want. I get to go off roading in the desert, multiple times a week. It's amazing being here. There's job opportunities here. We've been mask free. I can't remember the last time I had to wear a stupid mask. It's freedom. It's wonderful. We have open carry. We have concealed carry without a permit. There's a lot going for us here. And I can't believe I suffered in Illinois so long.
Wow. Well, hey, thank you so much, Alan, for joining my podcast. I really appreciate it. You've been really informative, and we want to hear back. We want to check back in with you again and see how things are going in Arizona. And we want to. We are very thankful that you are still watching what's going on in this state and informing people through social media by letting them know what freedom really looks like. So thanks a lot for all your efforts, and it was a joy to serve with you. And I tell you what, I do miss your voice because I know that you'd probably have a very strong voice in the House right now, but I understand. I understand you leaving.
Absolutely. Well, God bless. I'll pray for you guys, and I'll pray that Moses leads you out just like in Exodus led them out of the slaves coming out of Egypt. People from Illinois need to get out.
Thank you.